things that interest you. I think that's very important, to be interested in what you're doing and love what you're doing, because that passion is vital. It will keep you going in the tough times.
Hello, we're here with Tom Davis, the founder of Cowork Central. Tom, how are you?
Great, thanks. Thanks for coming.
Amazing. So we have here a really cool space. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, this is our oldest space here in Cowork, and we have 50 people, desks for 50 people now. A community of 50 people that come every day, and a mixture of people who come, who have a desk here, a fixed desk, who come here for a month, and others who come once or twice a week or more infrequently, depending on how long they're in Lisbon.
Before we go a little bit deeper on the space, tell us a little bit about your background.
My background is design, is web design, web development, and graphic design before that. I moved to Lisbon 12 years ago now, and was in London before that as a designer and developer of websites, websites, interactive.
So you have a programming background.
Programming background, exactly. And I loved London. It was a great city, but I kind of started feeling the pressure of hang on, to live in London you need to be like achieving at this level all the time. It's really expensive. My friends were being pushed out. It was getting harder to see them. You have to travel like 1 hour across the city to see them. And suddenly I realized, well, the choice was to leave London or to move to another city in the UK, or maybe to try another city
altogether.
Yeah. And coinciding with that was a project that I did with two friends from the UK in Lisbon, in 5 cities in Portugal, and also in Manchester and New York. So the project was creating sound maps. We basically went to cities, we recorded music and interviews and street sounds, and we created interactive experiences which enabled you to explore a city through sound. We worked with the community in each place to create these interactive websites, basically.
What happened to that project?
So that project, we did 3 different projects. We did the first one in New York, which was super great. It was involved in a museum in the Lower East Side. And then the project took us to Manchester, to the Manchester International Festival, where we did a project for the inaugural International Festival. And then the third project was the Portuguese project, which was in 5 cities in Portugal. And it involved sound maps as well as concerts with musicians.
Was it there that you fall in love with Portugal?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So the project is kind of dormant now because we've all grown up and gone off to do different projects in different places. But that was where I discovered my love for Portugal.
Amazing. What did you like about it?
I think I loved the people more than anything. They were very warm, very kind, very open, and actually it was the city of Porto that I fell in love with first, and I decided I'm definitely moving here. This is perfect. I can work remotely, I have my own work, my clients don't really care where I am, or rather, let's see if they care where I am. I'm going to move to Porto. And then a friend of mine who I met during this project, he said, just go to Lisbon for a couple of weeks first. Just
try it out first.
See, you might regret it. It's bigger, it's more international, it's a capital city, these things. And so I did.
And what happened?
And I didn't quite move to Porto. So my friends from Porto are very annoyed with me still, 12 years later, and 12 years later I'm still here in Lisbon, So I think it's okay. I think I'm calm with my decision. Every time I get off the train at Campanha, I feel at home in Porto, but probably they were right. It would have been a bit small for me after all my time in London.
So Tom, and why the co-working space? Why did you come here?
Well, so after I moved to Lisbon, I made some friends, and those friends over 3 or 4 years, we realized we were all working as creative freelancers, different people from different countries, from Germany, from Finland, from the USA, from the UK, from France, and you
all had the same need for a space.
Exactly. We all basically ended up sharing an office together. We said, okay, let's just share an office. Let's
start there.
Let's start there because it's boring to be at home. It's good to get out of the house. Let's start. So we rented an office up in Campo Martires de Patria. That was our first office. And then another friend was working in this building where we are now. And she said, I think they have some spare offices there. And we had to leave our other space. So we came here and I fell in love with this building. It's a really special building. It has a lot of history. It used to be a hotel 200 years ago.
And it's really central.
It's really central. And it used to be called the Grand Hotel Central. So this is why it's called Cowork Central. It's a very slightly pragmatic name, or at least a name that explores the old history of this building. And even Jules Verne stayed here 200 years ago.
Who?
Jules Verne. Jules Verne.
Jules Verne.
Jules Verne.
Jules Verne stayed here
Jules Verne
at this hotel?
At this hotel, exactly.
Amazing, yeah.
I don't know which room. It would be cool to think it was one of our rooms.
Probably, yeah.
But even now, there are still signs of the hotel, of the history in this building.
So that's the history to back it up.
Some of the rooms have padded, kind of leather padding on the back of the doors and things. There's still a bit of this history there. You can feel it. So with my friends, we started it as a very informal. I guess it was before co-working really existed, or perhaps when co-working just started. The idea of
when was that? 6 years ago, right?
Yeah, 6. Well, when we started sharing an office together, before it was Cowork Central, it was maybe 8 years ago. So the idea of co-work was very new, and effectively we're just sharing an office with friends. And we wanted to continue that vibe. Basically, more space in this building became available, and I realized that to take this space, because it was a really cool space with a nice view of the river, and it was a cool opportunity, we would have to turn it into something a bit more. It would have to pay for itself. It couldn't just be some friends sharing an office. It would have to be more robust as a business. And I was a very sociable person. We used to do barbecues and picnics and lots of social events, so it fitted in very well. We already had our kind of community. We had our little gang we shared an office with, and it didn't take much to extend it and turn it into something a bit more.
Into a business.
Into a business, exactly. And at the same time, I've been designing for screen for many years, and I was basically looking for something new.
Something out of there, yeah.
Yeah, because I like physical spaces. I remember as a kid designing spaces, drawings in my bedroom,
Oh, really? Yeah.
It was like a kind of mania I had when I was young. So it felt like a natural extension to move, to use my design skills and my social enjoyment of other people, to bring these two things together.
You've been in the co-working industry in Lisbon for the last 6 years. What do you think has been changing over the last 5 years? What's been changing?
Well, a lot, in terms of Lisbon itself, or the industry. I mean, in Lisbon, I think of course, when I first came here, I had to learn Portuguese. There weren't many foreigners. It was it was a necessity, we were the outsiders. So of course, to make a home here, you have to create roots and become part of the city. And I think these days it's a little bit harder these days it's not so necessary to learn Portuguese. In fact, it's very hard for people who are members to learn Portuguese, because they live in a city where English is so prevalent, and there's so many more foreigners, and there are so many activities and things that people can do, on their own in their own groups.
Do you see a big shift there? 10 years ago or 8 years
Absolutely.
ago, there was not enough foreign people, and now you can see foreign people everywhere.
Yeah, I wouldn't say not enough, but there were definitely fewer.
And they're coming not only to work but to live too, right?
Yeah, nowadays, I mean, both exactly. Of course, tourism is also a huge factor as well. But when I think one of the shifts that's very important is this idea of remote work. When I came 12 years ago, I was an exception. There were a handful of people who were working remotely, And if they were working remotely, they didn't tell their boss they were working remotely. If their boss said, I need you for a meeting tomorrow morning, you would get on the plane, you would fly there for tomorrow morning and pretend you had come from the other side of the city. Like it wasn't like it was a dangerous thing, working remotely. Now, fast forward 10 years, it's crazy, of course. Like, the idea of remote work is facilitated by high-speed internet, by flexible working arrangements, by remote-only companies. Whole companies that are only remote, and they even give their employees co-working budget as part of their pay packet because they realize the value of working together in an office, even when you're not working alongside your colleagues. So all of this stuff has changed, and the tools, of course. We have things like Slack, which is hugely important. We have Google Docs. We have 4G. All these things are indispensable, and they're the kind of thing that we now take for granted. We didn't 10 years ago. We couldn't take them for granted. It was a bit more like, okay, I'll call you back. And you went somewhere with good internet. Now it's more like, okay, everywhere is what you're wired up, even in the middle of a lake in the middle of Portugal. Even in a lake in the middle of Portugal, you've got 5 bars of 4G, and you can sit there on your laptop answering
can
emails
work anywhere
to anyone in the world. So it's great.
How do you see the industry evolving over the next years?
Well, there's already been quite a big evolution in terms of obviously remote working. We live in a world where everyone's demanding immediacy. Everyone's used to Uber Eats and Uber Eats and all these apps that give us everything we want here and now and immediately. And I think co-working is going a little bit like this. People lie in bed in the morning and they decide, where should I work today? And they look at their phone and they go, oh, okay, this place looks interesting, I'll go here. And they log in with their app and they appear, which is great. And I think that presents one of the challenges for us in the future, because it's harder for community is more fluid. People are much more, they might be attached to Lisbon as a city, but they're not necessarily attached to a particular co-working space so much. And for us as a co-working space, we've always valued the idea of a family. Ever since we started, we've always been a family, always been a hub where people can really get under the skin of the city, can really become integrated into Lisbon, can really find a network of people that they connect with and they get along with.
Did you change any of your business model to accommodate that change that's been happening?
I guess we have. What we see is two slightly contradictory shifts happening. On the one hand, we have these app-based co-working. This app-based co-working model, which is taking off. The main one we use is called Croissant, and Croissant is very popular because literally you can roll out of bed in the morning, you can choose the space, you can check in, and here you are. Today, here we have like 5 people from Croissant here, and in the other space we have maybe 2 or 3 people from Croissant. So it's very popular, and they check in, they check out, they come for an hour or 2, they come for all day, whatever. So we've accommodated that. And that works well for us. But the other thing is adapting the business model to make it more interesting for people to stay here for the longer term. To really sell the benefits of being a real member, a resident, of our family.
How many people do you have working here during the day? So you have 50 members, but during the day, how many people are?
Usually about 50.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So because we have maybe in this space, maybe 40 desks are fixed members, and maybe 10 are people that change every day. So maybe in each month there's maybe 200 active members, 250 maybe, and the rest are fixed people. And there's a similar percentage in the other space we have in Portugal.
Tell us about the challenges that you had creating Cowork Central.
Challenges. I think we've been very lucky, because I think at the same time that we've been growing, the invasion of foreigners, there are more and more people from all over the world moving to Lisbon. So that's helped a little bit, because the Portuguese, I think the job market in Portugal has proved a little bit resistant to the idea of co-working because, partly because freelancing itself is a little bit of a, let's say, scary idea, like a little bit of an insecure idea. It's still often, I still get the impression, even now, that the idea of being a freelancer in Portugal is still considered not a proper job, like not a serious business, not serious, not a precarious life choice, and I think that freelancers aren't necessarily treated very well by their employers still in Portugal, and I think that's changing because as well as having foreigners coming here to live, you've also got a whole market of remote work in existence. You've got platforms like Upwork and freelancer.com, all these platforms which enable the Portuguese to look for work outside the Portuguese market. And suddenly they realise, oh, hang on, I don't need to work for this arsehole boss, I can work for somebody nice who values my work, So during the crisis, when I first arrived, people were leaving the country to find work. Now they don't need to leave the country to find work, they can stay in the country and they can find work outside in their areas. Here we even have architects and other jobs like this that you used to not be able to do outside the country. You'd have to work where you were based because it would involve equipment and drawings and all these things. And now we have people that are making this work in a remote context.
What are the areas of the ones working here? What are the main areas?
I think when I first came 10 years ago, the first few people I saw were web developers, web developers and translators. And now 10 years later, there are still web developers and translators. But we also have a lot more. We have a lot of consultants, coaches, writers. We've got film writers and TV writers who come and rent a desk. We've got lawyers. We've got a lot of consultants. We've got independent e-commerce people. For me, it's very funny because we often, on our website, we say, what do you do when they send us an email? And sometimes they write, digital nomad. And I say, that's not a job. What do you really do? But actually, you'd be surprised by the number of digital nomads who have made a big business from e-commerce, dropshipping, e-commerce projects, and that's they float around the world, visiting from country to country, running their e-commerce business remotely, happy,
It works.
It works. Yeah. So we have a big mixture. We have an increasing mixture of different jobs and careers choices, and they're working in a more flexible way. So it might be working full-time for a remote company. It might be working, three or four different jobs, a kind of a virtual marketing manager for a company, for different companies, all sorts. Every possible configuration exists now, and it's great. It's the ultimate in flexibility. I think apart from the trend of ever more people working remotely and working independently in a more and more flexible way, I think you've got things like companies. We get a lot of requests for companies coming to do retreats here. So the companies are sending whole teams for a week or a month at a time to Lisbon, among other cities. Especially imagine if you're a remote company and you have a team spread all over the world. Once a year they want to get everyone together to meet everyone, to hang out, to learn new things, and they do this. And they come here for a month. Lisbon's a great place to do it. And tied in with that is the fact there are lots of big players in the co-working market finally moving to Lisbon, because I think more and more, co-work is of course co-workers are made up of remote workers and freelancers and digital nomads and all these people, but there's a more corporate side to co-working where what we used to see as service offices, Regis and all this kind of thing, that's all becoming much more mainstream. Why would you bother as a big company hiring a facilities manager, setting up a whole office, paying for decoration, all these things? Why would you bother doing that? Now you can just outsource it to a company like WeWork or Factory, who are moving into Beato, or even Second Home. You just outsource it, or us of course, you outsource it, and then you retain the flexibility, so that you start off your team. You say, okay, I'm starting my team in Lisbon. We want 4 desks. Okay, you have 4 desks. In 6 months we want 12. Okay, we're 12. Oh, now we want 50.
When did that start happening? Is it a new thing 1 year ago, or?
I think it's been getting more popular, this mode of working in Portugal over the last 5 years. I think definitely, as we've been growing, we've always kept some rooms for teams, and they've always been very popular. And I see more and more, if you go to other spaces like Lax in Santos or in Angers, if you go to other spaces that are more focused on the corporate market, you see they have the majority of their space is rooms for corporate entities, for companies. Because ultimately co-working is a cool concept, but it's not actually the mainstream of the market. It's just that something that's a name to attach onto. It's just that service offices is not a cool idea. And with co-working comes the community, comes the everyone hanging out together, events, having drinks, fun stuff, hip young things. Service offices is very boring.
And even I believe sharing of ideas between different spaces in the industry.
Yeah, between different verticals, between different industries, between different developers working on different projects, on different technologies. One of the tools we use here is very important to us is Slack, because a lot of developers also use Slack, and they're always getting into arguments about different languages. What's cool? What's not? What's a good way to do stuff? What's a bad way to do stuff? This is the way This is the way people like to interact and hang out. So, and for us, one of the things that's most important in terms of our community is giving them this solid base in Lisbon. So we do some events here. They're generally a bit more social, film nights, dinners, lunches. But we also curate lists of events, cool stuff around Lisbon that's happening that we can encourage people to go to, so they can learn either new skills, about new technologies or new industries, or meet interesting people from all over the world.
Tom, you're an entrepreneur yourself. Could you share with young entrepreneurs a good piece of advice?
My advice to anyone starting out would basically be just do it. Just basically, if you have an idea, start working away. Start thinking about the good things, the bad things, the things that might go wrong, the things that interest you. I think that's very important, to be interested in what you're doing and love what you're doing, because that passion is vital. It will keep you going in the tough times. When you're a bit down and feeling life's against you, if you're passionate about it, it will help you pick you up. But I think just do it. I think we live in a world where you can try. The barrier to entry for creating a business of any kind these days is so small compared to what it used to be, that just try it. Why not? What have you got to lose?
Tom, thank you very much for this interview.
Pleasure.